In this video, we're checking out the NSRA Street Rod Nationals in Louisville, Kentucky. There's about 10,000 cars here on the property and a big swap meet, lots of vendors, lots of cool stuff here. We're going to look at some of the historic hot rods, some of the cool speed parts in the swap meet, and a special treat at the end, a legendary custom car that's the ultimate survivor. I start every day at the swap meet because you never know what you're going to find, and one of the first things I saw was this set of magnesium American 5-spokes. These things were in pretty good shape, a little bit of oxidation, but they'd clean up nice. They wanted big money for them, but still a very good set of wheels. Next, I saw this incredible vintage top fuel motor. This is a 392 Chrysler Hemi, and those aluminum heads, those are Donovan castings. This is like one-of-one type stuff. There's not a whole lot of these things floating around, and just more stuff that this guy had. He had a magnesium blower manifold, Zoomy headers, a Lenco transmission. This guy had some neat stuff. Also in the swap meet was this 57 Cadillac. Now this started as a hearse or limousine, and it had the back end of the body cut off and had this camper conversion kit. This thing is rough, but it's super cool. I mean, it is just a wild and weird thing, and it says that it has the original 365 engine. It says it runs, so this could be a pretty cool project. They wanted $7,500 for it. Now this guy had some really neat toys and go-karts and vintage small race cars. You'll see the Ford Thunderbird body. You'll see this other car here. I'm not sure what that body's supposed to be, but a lot of neat stuff in this guy's booth. I like any kind of old race car parts, and this looks like it maybe come off of a vintage sprint car or a midget. Not really sure, but you can see fuel cell and, you know, this kind of a fiberglass shell with the crash bar around the back of it. Pretty cool piece. Now this is a pretty cool collection of quarter midget race car parts. You can see a chassis and a body and a lot of suspension pieces and crash bars and different things for different eras of quarter midget race cars. And I really took an interest in this because we've got a little Lafayette quarter midget car back at the house that just kind of got me inspired to learn more about these things. And as I'm walking the aisles, check this out. This guy's travel trailer is held up by, of course, a block of wood, but under that block of wood is an old blower case. I felt like that was worth mentioning. I love vintage wheels, and I've never seen a set of these in person. I've seen about them on the internet, I've read about them, I've studied them, but this is the first time I've ever seen a set of these Firestone wheels. They were extremely rare, almost like a prototype, and they just never really hit the market. But this guy, probably asking big money for them. I didn't even ask, but really neat to see them in person. Speaking of big money, check out this $950 price tag on this Ilco aluminum tank. But check out all the cool stuff with it. The old Ilco lid, and then look at this hand pump for the fuel. I mean, this is some really neat stuff, probably from the late 50s. Here's an old piece of a race car. This is an altered roadster, and the chassis work looks really nice. The welds look good. The design looks pretty good, even though the cage is pretty wide. It's a little wider than you'd normally see, but it's got a little T-bucket body on it. It's got everything that you would want as far as suspension mounts, but it's pretty much just bare frame rails and a roll cage. Now, I didn't get any history on this car, but just judging by the quality of the paintwork, quality of the welds, this is a contemporary build. This is probably something that was built in the 90s, I would guess, and probably didn't run any kind of extreme combination, more than likely a bracket car. Now, I don't have anything with a Ford flathead, but I was tempted to buy these cylinder heads. They're Edelbrock aluminum heads. They've got the right amount of patina and crust on them, and they were only 200 bucks, so I felt like that was a pretty good deal even for a wall hanger. Here's another really rare set of wheels. These were actually made by Kelsey Hayes, and they look a lot like the Magstar, which was used on Shelby Mustangs, but there's a little bit different design on the center. It was a cast aluminum center riveted to a steel rim, and they had a trim ring on them, center cap, and this was used in 1969 and 1970 on Mercury Marauder X100s. And there's probably not a whole lot of these wheels left, but these are in really good shape. The guy was asking 1,100 bucks for the set, probably a fair price. One of the cheapest and roughest projects on the property is this 57 Chevrolet. It's a two-door hardtop, but this thing has been somebody's old race car at some point in its life. You can see it's been yellow at some point. You can see it's had a lot of different paint jobs and primer and work that's been done on it, a lot of Bondo in there. But underneath the front of it is where it got interesting to me, because look at this custom cross member for the engine mounts. And then you look further, it's got a straight axle under it with leaf springs. You know, this was legitimately somebody's gasser at some point, but it is rough. There was some pretty cool stuff inside the vendor building. Obviously a lot of street rod parts, a lot of new things in there, but there was also the straight axle Mafia that had a really cool setup in the corner of the building. There's a little Ford Falcon, a 64 Chevelle, a Chevy 2. I mean, a lot of the favorites from the gasser community. Velocity stacks sticking up, fender wells cut out, you know, some really neat stuff. The old Ford pickup truck, it's for sale. It's a little rough around the edges, but still a cool project. And then we've got the Tennessee Taxi. This is Tony McConnell's car. It's got a Ford inline 6-cylinder in it, and this thing runs really good. It pulls the wheels up off the line, and you know, this is a legitimate old race car that he's still out there running to this day. On the other side, we got a little Ford Falcon 2-door station wagon. Super rare car, and they've obviously cut it up to be a gasser, but still pretty cool. Then we've got a Chevelle, kind of an unlikely gasser. You don't see very many of these set up like this. Very high up in the front, big scoop sticking out of the hood. Definitely get your attention type of car. And then next to it is a Ford Ranch wagon, another unlikely gasser. Got those fender wells cut out in the back, cool scoop on the hood. And then we've got two Tri-5 Chevy gassers. This is Shane Lyle and his wife Jessica. They both have Tri-5 Chevy gassers, and they both run in the straight axle Mafia. Now this is a wild one. This is a show car from the 1960s and 70s. This is a 66 Pontiac GTO, and it was customized many years ago. You can see this paint job. It's wild and crazy. You might say it's a little bit psychedelic with all the different colors and stripes and flames. And then you look inside, and it's definitely 1970s in there. You can see the upholstered dash, the seats, the door panels all have matching upholstery. Really, really wild stuff. And then it's got a pretty cool looking hood scoop on it. Again, lots of paint tricks here on the hood, lots of airbrush work, lots of stripe work, lots of metal flake, just so many details. It's unbelievable. And you can see under the hood, this thing's actually got a big block Chevy in it. It's got aluminum heads, it's got a cross ram intake with 2 4s. It's got a lot of vintage parts and a couple of new parts on there. And just look at all that crazy paint work. The firewall, the inner fenders, the radiator support, and you can see this paint starting to come apart. It's losing a little bit of its adhesion on some of those areas, but just look at this stuff. It says Proud Mary right there on the heater box cover. Just so many crazy details. Somebody spent thousands of hours taping and freehanding a lot of this paint job, and you can see, I mean, this thing is shiny on the outside. Some of that stuff under the hood lost some of its shine, but this thing still presents pretty well. And then look at this vinyl roof with the flames cut into it. I mean, this is just wild show car stuff from back in the day. Some might say it's a little bit goofy, but I love this kind of stuff because it's got history, it's got crazy personality, and there's always a story behind a car like this. Here are a couple more cars inside the vendor building that I really liked. A pair of 33 Ford Coupes. They're both radically chopped, both got crazy engine combinations, magnesium wheels, slicks on the back, just killer, aggressive, old school hot rods. They kind of look like a cross between a hot rod and a drag car, which is exactly what I like. And here's another one with a very similar build style. We got magnesium wheels front and back, spindle mounts, no front brakes, no fenders, no running boards. This is just a stripped down 3-window coupe. And look at this engine combination. This is a small block Chevy. It actually appears to be a 283. It's got a 471 blower on it. Check out that old blower drive with 3 V-belts on it, 2 4-barrels, 2 vintage scoops, Corvette valve covers, white headers. I mean, this is a killer old school combination. At the end of the day, I got the biggest surprise as I got to my hotel, and it was this amazing cab over ramp truck that is hauling one of the most awesome survivors that I've ever seen. This is a Darryl Starbird custom car. It was called FORCASTA back in the day, and this thing has gone through a couple of different variations through the years, but this is absolutely old paint. It's old everything, and I can't believe how well it survived. Just seeing it outside in the elements is pretty shocking because this car, you know, obviously it's been in a collection somewhere, but seeing it outside, seeing it in the sun, I mean, it is outstanding. The bubble top is in excellent condition. You can see a little bit of that interior. It's actually got a paisley pattern, and surprisingly, this car was built off of a Chevrolet Corvair. So it's rear engine, it's got 13-inch wheels on it. It's a really unusual platform to build upon, but Darryl Starbird did some unusual things back in the day, and this car is an amazingly preserved example of his work. That pretty much does it for this early coverage from the NSRA Street Rod Nationals. Hope to bring you another video soon. There's always lots of cool stuff hidden all throughout the fairgrounds. Hopefully I'll find some more cool vintage stuff, old drag cars, old customs, old hot rods. That's what I like to cover. Hopefully we'll see some more tomorrow. See you soon.